networks, podcasts, a prolific content poster. I don't want to say creator so he doesn't kick me. Micheal Girdley. Welcome.
Well, I do have a complaint. You put me in between lunch, 3 hours in a dark room, and them getting to drinks. So that means I got to bring my A game. Is that pretty much?
I mean, you got to bring your A game.
Okay.
You know, there's nothing more to it.
Oh,
we got you a pre-dinner.
Is this Chili's takeout?
Yeah, it's Chili's.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Heroes. Sheesh. Then you'll definitely see me take a nap.
Yeah, we're gonna take a nap in public here. Okay, I have so many questions.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do this. So, I've obviously read. I don't want to say a lot of your tweets because there's so many, but like enough tweets to feel like I have an understanding of Micheal Girdley. What I want to spend some time on today is I want to talk about the launches, Girdley's World now, the new show included, and why that's a focus when we've got Alamo, we've got Dura, we have large things and we're launching small things. So I want to talk a lot about that. And I want to talk about the value that you're seeing in all this content that you're creating. I was allowed to say content creating.
Well, I'm a social media influencer, so.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to lead up to that. And what you're getting from this outside of just pure enjoyment, maybe that is it. So let's start there. You're prolific on social media. Walk us through it.
Yeah, well, I stumbled into it in 2020. Like, I was sitting in my house, like all of you during COVID, and like I was bored to tears, and I discovered Twitter. It's like the perfect platform for introverts to go be extroverted. So like, I am truly introverted. Like, I enjoy alone time. I got that from my dad, who like loves his alone time. He'll just he goes on vacations by himself. Like, he's that person. And so, I'm slightly less introverted than him, but I found Twitter was this magical place. And, what I loved about Twitter was it was this place where, like, whether we know it or not, it's a very competitive environment. Everybody's competing to try to write the best content, try to write the best tweet. I like to write the best reply. I call that the ratio game. You see if you can write the funniest reply even better than somebody's original post. Not that anybody's trying to win, but I'm definitely trying to win. And, that turned into just a journey for me to find this, Twitter's a marketplace of ideas where I could put my stuff out there, sharpen my saw by putting things out there. And it has really just gone from there in terms of, where I've gone today, which is, I think, turning all the stuff I'm doing in social media into its own business. And we can talk about why I'm doing it that way and the benefit there. And then really, like, the underlying reason is, like, I don't really need to do it, but, like, it is an accelerant for all the things that I want to have as an impact on the world. And, at its core, like, my reason to be on the earth is to create things that impact the world better at scale. Like, if somebody asks, that's what I do. And having an audience and having a platform and being, hopefully someday, big on YouTube as well, like, that's just a way I can just be better at doing all of that, and that's why I do it.
Yeah. So how many of these businesses have you launched since beginning your Twitter journey here?
Incubated 3 different businesses since Twitter started and did 1 independent sponsor deal.
Well, which one was the independent sponsor deal?
Cyber Fortress. We did that as an independent sponsor deal.
Okay. So hire with Near.
Near, that's a LATAM staffing business, yep.
The
ScalePath.
HoldCo course, ScalePath.
ScalePath, and then the media business, and then I also did the coffee business in 2021.
I have that in here too.
Yeah, that was really fun
Yeah.
to get out of.
Yeah. Yeah. So how are you selecting opportunities? Like, how does this look? You have to get DM'd all day, every day with like, hey, we should try this thing.
Yeah, so today actually I turned off my Twitter DMs. So like I was like, they're just so bad. Yeah. Everybody else says the magic happens to DMs. My DMs are like a total dumpster fire. Like, it's just garbage. It's either sexual stuff or crypto or a scam or like somebody asking me
or
for
all
free,
5. Yeah.
or somebody asking me for free advice about a crypto adult-oriented scam. And that's the hardest part is like you put yourself out there and like people are like, oh, you seem reasonably smart. Give me some free advice. And like I want to give and help people. And it's like I have to just like be like, no, or like here's this link. Like it's just so that's why I just shut it off today. Anyway, it's my emotional deal. So what was the question?
It was a great answer. But so the question is, how are you choosing opportunities? Because you are probably getting so many.
Oh yeah.
You've selected 4 now:
Right.
the Coffee Chain with a Friend, HoldCo, Course and Community, the
Yep.
Scale Path, and Hire with Near.
Yeah. I think where I'm at in terms of my evolution of how venture creation should work is I think, and it's probably a pretty natural one, I am much more interested in starting with who the team or leader is going to be and then figuring it out after that. Because I think that finding interesting ideas is actually easier than finding great people. And that's just really based on my experience of seeing what happens when I have like a 10x leader as a partner slash employee slash whatever running a company. So like I'll start with those great people, and then I think there's different models where you can bring people in first into those things. I've done it where I've brought in somebody who's arguably more senior than me. We partnered on stuff and collaborated. That's how we started Dura, our software business. And then more recently, I do it more at scale with people who are in their second or third job in their 20s. That's my associate program. And that's how Scale Path happened, that's how Near happened, that's how the media business is happening, all kind of that same profile where I find like a winning, gritty, hustling 20-something. I bring them things that they're missing, they bring me things that I'm missing, and we go find an idea together at that point.
I've seen the post, hey, I'm looking for my next associate.
Yeah.
I mean, what does this usually look like? Like what's the individual? I can imagine gritty, I can imagine that, but what's the resume typically look like?
Yeah, they're typically 20-something, went to a decent school. They are, have had a first job that was usually kind of crappy. They did not come from an entrepreneurial background. So like I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. I don't know about you, but like that was like a huge benefit for me is like I grew up hearing my dad just talk about like, let me tell you what this lawyer did today. I was like, oh, well, that sounds terrible, Dad. I'm also 11, so maybe I don't know what's going on. But like, I remember being on road trips and my dad's like, why do you think both of those gas stations have the exact same price, son? Like little stuff like that was like huge. But the people that come in the associate program, they typically didn't come from an entrepreneurial background. Their parents were military or W-2 or whatever. And so like me being crazy like business uncle for them, like brings a lot in terms of their, their growth in terms of that kind of stuff.
Business uncle.
Crazy business uncle.
Yeah, that was good.
It's who I am. So. Yeah, and then they all know they want to do entrepreneurship, but they tend to have like like that 5 or 10 misconceptions that everybody kind of has about entrepreneurship that like you get wrong, like, and you have to go kind of learn the hard way, like, oh, you know what, I shouldn't get that domain name before I talk to customers. Like that kind of stuff, I will coach them through that. Or like in putting together Scales Path, like we particularly had an issue where it was like, my co-founder there, who was a former associate, Sam, did awesome. His inclination was to build a little bit more before we launched. I was like, nah, just put it out there. Squarespace, like get it out there. Nobody cares. Like either nobody's going to judge us for having a Squarespace thing. And by the way, we still have a Squarespace level like website. But like it's those little things where I can coach them through that because I've done that, now that I'm 48 and can be helpful.
So Sam, in this case, for Scale Path, you bring him on. He's gritty. He's all the right things, and I'm jumping now back, trying to understand the opportunity set. So does he bring you opportunities, or together you just collaborate through your time as the associate program where they could eventually end up?
Yeah. So I think the most powerful thing I've seen in incubating companies is if it's our idea that we're excited about, never my idea.
Sure.
Or his idea. Because that ends up being something that neither one of us has an emotional connection to. And I think when you're incubating a company, it will eventually get sucky, undoubtedly. And if we both don't have that emotional connection to it, it's too easy to quit or not work a weekend or whatever that is. So, an associate will join me, and I think I give them a pretty good deal, which is I pay them a slightly below market rate intentionally, and we can talk about why I do that. But that's maybe 20% less than what they would make getting a Joe job, right? And their job is just to go find their next thing. No string attached, no contract, no nothing. And we'll either decide to partner on something together. They can go maybe work at one of my companies, or they can just go do their own thing, or they can go get a job, they can quit, like no obligation whatsoever. So I try to make that like an offer they can't refuse to really attract the absolute best people. And it ties back to that thesis that I have that like killer operators create killer companies, no matter what the opportunity is. And so like I optimize that for getting them in there, but also pay them slightly below market because I don't want them to think they can stay there for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
right? I want them to come in and understand it's an 18 to 24 month tour of duty. Hopefully they find something, and I prove to them along the way that I'm going to be a huge value add, and they want to partner with me as part of that.
What are they doing outside of just the search, the opportunity hunting, or is that it? Is this a paid search?
I mean, sometimes like I ask them to do like special projects and stuff if I'm in
Yeah.
a bind, but like it's very rare.
Like go check out the coffee and
I mean, like there was like we had like a tough time at my house, and I asked him to do like a 12-hour project, and he was very gracious. And I was like, look, I know this is outside of your job description, but I'm asking you, just please help me. And he helped. So, but that's super rare.
most of the time, this is a paid search.
Yeah, yeah. With
That's
no
sweet.
obligation.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm into that. Like, are you hiring?
Yeah. Yeah, when can you start? You got to wear socks though.
No, I'm wearing socks. They're in there. Yeah, they're in there. They're somewhere in there. Yeah, man, that's a lot of fun. Economically, obviously, Alamo's like a thing, right? Alamo's a big thing. Endura's a big thing. The stuff you're doing with, it's you're calling it a venture studio, sort of like an SMB venture studio.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you rationalize the time spent on the small fun stuff when you have these two giant things?
Right.
'Cause I think that's something that I know that I personally would have a tough time, and I'm envious.
Yeah, so, a couple years ago, I made also another big decision. Like, I only want to work on ideas that I think could be hugely impactful. So, like, I have a checklist now of things I'm not going to work on. It's like, is there a path to 100 million in revenue? Nope, not working on it. Like, I'm not signing up for that. So, the mental gymnastics I do, which is, you can agree with it or not, I see investing in those things as a discount to a business that 15 years from now is going to be doing 100 million in revenue. Right, and I'm trying to think in decades and not in years about this stuff. I'm 48, which, by the way, it's gotten much easier to think in decades as I get older because I am now almost into my 5th decade. Mm-hmm. But like, that's how I think about it. And I realize if I do this 7, 8, 10 times, eventually one of those is going to be worth hopefully dozens of millions, right? Mm-hmm. Dozens of hundreds of millions, and there'll probably be another one that might get there, and then the rest will be noise. Like, I see them all as a discount to that potential outcome.
So with that in mind, all the content, is this like, I'm sort of thinking of Cieva's...
luck maximization?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So is that how we're seeing this? Is like, this is top of funnel in order to get all these barbell opportunities?
Yeah. Let's also be totally real about it. Like, I have a shit ton of fun doing it.
It's a good time.
If it's not clear, like, if I'm not having fun, if you don't think I'm having fun doing it, then I'm totally doing it wrong. Because that's the number one thing, like, I've learned. If I'm creating content, being out there recording videos or whatever, Acquisition Anonymous, like, we need to be having fun, and that's the first, like, rule of thumb about it. But like it makes everything so much easier, right? Mm-hmm. So like luck surface area, want to hire an associate. Last time I did it, last fall, and I'll do it again this fall. Like, I got 400 applicants, and they were all ballers. Wow. Like, just like, I mean, there were some losers in there, but but there were
392.
But there were, I mean, like 25% baller rate, like it was like killer. Yeah. So like that kind of stuff makes it super easy. There's also, I think.
Do you keep those names and like turn that into a drip campaign to ideally land into another opportunity?
No, I just deleted them. So that's a really good idea, though. You should get into the marketing business. I think you'd be great.
That's part of our new recruitment strategy. Is we're hiring these aggressive recruiters, and then if we don't close, if we don't get the interview, get the job, then we're turning it into an outbound drip campaign in order to eventually close. So every Friday they get their paycheck at 6 a.m.
Right.
Every Friday at 6:01 they're getting the email about how great it is to work for John.
That's genius. I should totally do that.
It's a pretty good idea.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It also, I mean, in the last point about social, like, learning how to write concisely, learning how to think about things concisely, thinking through, if I write this, what is somebody else going to say? Is it going to attract the wrong kind of follower? Because that's the other thing I really focus on. Like, I don't want an asshole audience. Sorry for cursing, but there are people out there that do things that attract assholes. Like, you go look at my followers, and like, I give them all love, and I only get hugs back, right? And every once in a while somebody will show up, I block them. But like, it's just a different world. And so like that level of psychology of having to think through all that works and how do I sharpen the saw to not only think about what I'm gonna do, what other people are gonna do, and then think of depth there. And then the last thing that's like super fun, like, it's a game. Like, Twitter's a game. I used to play video games. I don't anymore. I play Twitter. Mm-hmm. Like, and YouTube's the same way. It's just a totally different game. And like, I think it's super fun to go in there and figure out the puzzle.
how much time are you spending on tweets? And maybe first, are there ghostwriters?
All the content is mine, 100%. I have 2 full-time team members. One's a CEO of the Girdley Media Empire. We put the full plan out there. You can see what we're doing, and our vision is I've designed that as its own standalone company in the HoldCo for intentional reasons. And then we have one person who is totally, all he does full-time is work with me on written content. So like if I'm rerunning threads or rerunning tweets or doing analytics or looking at strategy, like he and I partner on that stuff together. But everything we put out, this is just a core belief I have. There's people out there that are big content creators and it's all ghostwritten shit. No offense to them, but like I feel that's dishonest to put your name on stuff that's not your stuff. So it's all my stuff, but is he helping me like produce the stuff and get it out? Absolutely.
So, time. Like, what does this look like? What's a day look like in Girdley's?
Yeah, 100%. So I function best like a toddler or a baby. You know how babies like routines? I love routines. So like my daily routine, and I time slice it into 4 different time slices. So the best time slice is 25% of my work time is I just leave totally unscheduled. I just like go screw around or like go for walks and think about stuff. I think about business all the time. So that's like super easy. It's not like I'm not going to work. The second 25% time, which is, let's say 12 and a half hours a week, is on content creation, learning, reading, strategizing, all that kind of stuff. So that's how that works. The next 12 and a half hours, the next quarter, is spent on business supervision. So one-on-ones with CEOs, I do those on a regular basis. I like a routine. We have them scheduled all the time. Board meetings, all that kind of stuff, that's all scheduled down to like it's going to happen 2 o'clock on Tuesday, one-on-ones with people that work for me and stuff like that. And then the last quarter is what I call special projects. Something's happening, we need to replace a CEO, somebody needs help, we're trying to do a refinancing, any of that kind of stuff. That's the last time slice of how I organize the time. And then the typical day tends to rotate around that. I have weekly kind of routines. Mondays and Tuesdays are the weekly check-ins and stuff like that. Wednesdays is the day I block out everything. Friday afternoons, I try not to schedule anything because I'm old and I get tired at lunchtime.
How many CEOs do you have reporting up to you?
It's 11 now, directly, and then indirectly a lot more because Dura has 15 companies.
And each has a CEO. Yeah. Can you give us a sense of scale on Dura and Alamo?
Alamo has 40 retail stores and about 150 fireworks stands. Been around since 1962 when my grandfather came back from the war and incorporated it. My brother and I own it together. We have 45, 50 employees, and we'll open 200 fireworks stands and stores each season. So,
what do all those employees do when it's not the 2 days that they sell fireworks?
Yeah, so it's a massive logistics business disguised as a fireworks business. It's actually a massive real estate business disguised as a massive logistics business disguised as a fireworks business. So,
It sounds like a front.
or a drug front. Actually,
yeah.
Anyway, I was going to tell an off-color joke, but I won't. Anyway, it's whenever we have a first board meeting, the joke we'll make whenever we have a first board meeting, like we took an investment for one of our companies, and like the CEO started talking, and I like interrupted, and I was like, whoa, I thought we were importing drugs. What are you doing? Anyway, the professional investors did not think that was very funny, but I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
But it set the tone. I mean, we're going to be serious but fun. That's how I think about it. So, is it a drug front? No, not that I know of, but that would be awesome if it was.
Yeah.
And then, what do they do the rest of the year? It's the hardest business I'm involved in. The cash flow dynamics are crazy. You get paid basically 4 days out of the year. New Year's Eve, the day before New Year's Eve, the 3rd and the 4th, and the rest of the days kind of don't really matter. And basically, we spend our whole 6-month cycle spinning up logistics, getting ready, putting everything out there, paying everybody salaries, buying fireworks, putting them out in locations, finding the people to run them, doing the marketing, doing the sales, doing the pricing, buying the fireworks from China, getting new spaces, renewing spaces. You do all that in the 6-month period leading up to the big days, and then you hope that you don't have a hurricane on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
But then you make money, which is awesome. And then it starts over again.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a lot. It would be easier to do drugs.
Yeah.
We're spitballing here.
I won't work with you. I didn't know we were going to incubate a company on the stage.
Yeah,
maybe we should do this less publicly.
Yeah, I think so. This one's not recorded. Okay, and then Dura. Can you give us a sense of scale on Dura?
Dura, Dura, we took money. They basically
That
tell
was a
you.
big deal.
Yeah. Let me tell you this. I'll tell you the story of Dura. So late 2017, I got introduced, and this is a way incubated business. I got introduced to Paul Salisbury, who's an amazing guy, still the CEO. He and I started the business together. So we incubated it with the idea I would never work in the business. And so I told him I had this thesis. There's this long tail of small software businesses that are mature. I think we can buy them at good multiples, roll them up into a Constellation style or a bigger thing, doing it as a HoldCo model, which at the time was not as accepted as it is now. And we faced a similar challenges to what Thomas talked about because it's an evergreen style structure. We had to convince people doing it as a C Corp was better than a fund. So Paul had a varied career and had ended up working through Dell and MBA from Texas, and then was eventually ran all of global sport for Rackspace back before Rackspace imploded. And so had grown up and become a really senior leader and was just a grown-ass man. And I got introduced to him just serendipitously by Graham Weston, who's one of the founders of Rackspace in San Antonio. So I pitched him over lunch and said, hey, dude, and that's how the pitch goes, actually. Hey, dude, I think there's this thesis. Why don't we test it out? We'll go buy a software company. So he and I put our own money together, bought the business, and then after the third we bought a business. He was the CEO of that first one. And then after the third business, we ran out of our own money, and so then we raised rounds of capital. And so since then, leading up to this past spring, when we took a private equity round, $50 million in capital injected in the business, put it well into the 9 figures valuation. That is a HoldCo that sits in my HoldCo, so I'm the largest individual shareholder, sit on the board, and I'm the chairman there. And that's one where we just eventually, the growth trajectory, I don't have $50 million. That would be really nice,
Yeah.
but that's how we ended up putting it all together. And so they're at 180 employees or something right now.
Yeah.
Really, really pretty big, 8-figure EBITDA business, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that is a big business.
Yeah, they've done 15 acquisitions, and they'll probably do 3 more before the end of the year.
How much of a runway does 50 million get you in that space?
Depends on the size of business you're buying. I mean, the real opportunity now is sub 10 million EV. Anything above that is few and far between. That's where there are a ton of assets. So, unlevered, you could probably do 10 or 12 of those acquisitions.
And then do you think you raise again, or do you just have so much EBIT at that point that you can still keep taking down the same size
We are
targets?
growing faster than free cash flow right now. So we're generating free cash flow. We're highly profitable. That's part of the model. Mm-hmm. And then but we have more opportunity than that. So there will probably be more capital raised at some point. The folks, Peterson has been amazing. They're a terrific partner, and there's a lot of capital in private equity and folks that believe in them just like we do. So,
are these software companies, are they like VC dropouts?
Rarely.
Okay.
Rarely. I mean, we have one under LOI now that's a VC dropout, but most of them are 65-year-old dude, started a company 10 years ago, grew it to $4 million in revenue, $1 million in EBITDA. It's pretty stable. It's not going anywhere. Moved it to the cloud 4 years ago. It's in a very defensible niche, and we come in and buy it.
Yeah. When I first Zoomed with you the very first time, you were inside a stairwell in Dura.
Is that when I got locked in the stairwell?
I think it might have been.
I don't know. I was just joking. I can't remember.
I think you had your office was there. So I guess the point here is, did you end up not having to work a single day inside it?
I co-officed with them
Okay.
because I felt like there was a period of about 6 months where I really needed to come in and be more helpful. Since then, my strategy on all stuff, I office separately from every company because I discovered, and it may just be a personality problem, when I go to their meetings or I'm in the office, it's like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, I change it by being there. So I don't go to any meetings and I physically separate myself there. And that, I probably overstayed my welcome a couple months at Dura. But anyway, it's my idea to leave. They were like, you're leaving? I was like, yeah, I'm going to be across the street. So.
Mm-hmm. In the baller office.
In the baller office with other
yeah.
ballers.
Yeah.
Doing baller things.
Yeah, that's pretty great. All right, so where do we see all this media going?
So our goal is to make it really big and impactful. To get to, I forgot what our number is. We have a 10-year vision for $1 billion a year in impressions. So we'll probably blow through that.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yes.
Impressions, on Twitter, or like total impressions?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, how do you value impressions?
So it's just a rough number under EOS.
Okay.
We'll probably fix it in the
Okay.
future. We only had our first meeting a month ago, so
I mean, it
yeah,
sounds like
yeah,
a great vision. I'm
yeah.
compelled.
It's about 5x where I am now
Okay.
from an impression standpoint. So there's Twitter, video, YouTube, all that stuff. I think when we eventually kind of figure it out, we'll end up with per platform kind of metrics and that sort of thing.
Yeah. A billion impressions sounds ridiculous, like insane.
It's funny. I was at like a creator offsite for other like nerdy influencers like me, and they're like, "That number's too low."
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you're doing 250 now.
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, it probably is. That's incredible.
yeah. So I've set it up intentionally. Like, if you're a culture index person, like I'm a philosopher, and I'm actually a narrow AB philosopher, which means I'm like kind of friendlier than your typical philosopher. No offense to the philosophers in the audience, but we're typically jerks. Because any reasons. But so that means like if you talk to the culture index people, they'll say the way I have to set stuff up is like Ron Popeil, like set it and forget it. And so I have to automate and create systems to make them, because I won't remember to think about your business unless I have a system to remember. So I try to automate things and structure them in a way that I never have to worry about them. So, we're setting up the media business as like its own independent business with a P&L, like affected by what I kind of called, I talked about it last night, like the laws of the jungle. Like, you need to have constraints, you need to have customers, you need to be efficient, like all those things. And so we hired Ty, who's the CEO of the business. He started in August, and like he has a P&L. His job is to make money and grow the business and achieve our vision. So
I want to double click on the remembering to think about somebody's business.
Mm-hmm.
You have 11 CEOs, and that's a lot. And I guess there's 26 if we count the other ones. So how do you remember to do it? How do you deal with their day-to-day? I know you said you blocked off their time, but that's still, 11 CEOs sounds like more than the full-time job to me.
A schedule. So I have, with each company, I have an interaction cadence customized to the individual company. So if it's, say, like a brand new startup company with a CEO in it, like we'll talk, we have a check-in every week. It's on my calendar, and we have 45 minutes, and we talk through stuff. Otherwise, I will not remember to talk about them or even think about them. If it's a more mature company, it could be as often as like a one-on-one for an hour once a month. And that'll just be scheduled, run my life by Google Calendar. That's the only way. And there's board meetings and annual meetings and all that kind of stuff, but it gets put on the calendar, and then I do what the calendar tells me.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to keep going back to content here because I just think it's fascinating. So 1 billion impressions, how do you intend to get there?
Make good content. Yeah, I was just slacking with our team. Like, here's the secret to actually like growing your social media. It's none of the hacks or any of that stuff. You can have all the beautiful thumbnails you want.
Make stuff people want to look at.
Make stuff people want to look at,
Yeah.
right? And like so, and the way we do that is like just creating stuff that's going to add value. And to me, the test is always like, if I ask myself like, ooh, this is really good. Should I tell people this? If I say that, then I should definitely give it away. And so that's the goal, is really to do interesting stuff, learn interesting things from it, and then share it with everybody. And I see that as like back to my reason to exist, right? Create things, in this case tweets that, my tweets change the world, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. Oh, people don't know Keith Rabeau. Do you guys remember that? Anybody remember that tweet? No? Keith Rabeau said his tweets are, he says
the
tweets.
VC guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he tweeted famously,
Yeah.
"Oh, my tweets, you're a small person, Twitter listener. My tweets are here changing the world." So that's how my tweets change the world. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that dude is, he's priceless, and I find him super interesting, but he's just the exact opposite person I want to be.
Yeah, I've only ever seen the bad stuff with
Yeah.
it, and it's always in the like the VCs congratulating themselves.
Yeah.
Twitter. Yeah.
Never go there.
Yeah,
Never become the main character of Twitter.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
It's not good.
But look, I think more back to your point tactically, like each one of these platforms is unfortunately or fortunately a game. You have to figure out not only how to provide value through good stuff, you have to think about when to send it, how to package it. On YouTube, you have to think about what the hook's going to be. How do you keep people engaged? Because you have to play the algorithm's game. And you end up in a position where either you're going to agree to play the game or you're going to speak to an empty room. And to me, it's like, if I'm going to play the game, I'll get to a point where I'm going to play the game, but only with the values that I want them to have. For example, we talked about the idea of like repackaging other people's content or stealing it and passing it off as your own. I will not do that. I think that's scummy. I don't want to do it. But that's just me. And somebody else needs to feed their family, so they're welcome to do that if they need to.
I was going to steal all yours.
You're totally welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. And how many hours a week are you spending on video? Like, how much time are you spending recording?
Recording is super easy. Recording, I can knock out a 6 or 8 minute video and give them everything they need to work with within 10 or 15 minutes.
Are you Hire with Near is probably the best example. I guess all of them. But Hire with Near has got to be growing ridiculously as your audience grows.
Yeah.
So how are you thinking about advertising these services through your platform? And as there get more and more of them, how do they get enough space?
Yeah. So the way that works is like something like Near, at this point, growth is, I'm just noise for them. Like it doesn't really matter that much. The only really thing that's mattered in the past 6 months for me talking about Near has been a tweet where I talked about how fast Near was growing. Nothing else has mattered. And they got like 12 leads. To put that in perspective, they get more than that per week through just inbound at this point. And that's the goal.
Do you think still primarily driven through, what's the referral source if not your Twitter?
Existing customers who are delighted with us because it turns out most staffing agencies suck. And then web and inbound SEO. They rank really high now. But that's the goal. Like with ScalePath that we incubated, the goal is to eventually to get me from not being the sole source for that stuff, and they grow on their own. So that's, ScalePath will be relaunching with new website and all that kind of stuff in the next couple of weeks. But the idea is exactly what you're saying. I shouldn't be a single source of failure for them, just like I'm not for Dura or Alamo or anything else I'm involved in.
Yeah. I want to spend a little bit of time here on the launch. So we've identified the CEO first. We then co-pick an opportunity, which I think that, you don't need to be told this, but I think that's pretty cool. That's dope. I'm into that. I can't wait to start and co-pick an opportunity. And you mentioned earlier in this breakout that Code Up, you were either revenue driving or profitable. I remember profitable, but I'm going to give you a chance to correct it within the first 4 months.
Yep.
Okay. How are you doing that with all of these? How are you thinking about seed funding, and what does the first few months look like?
Yeah, I think that's the cool thing about incubating this type of company, and I would love to talk about the types of companies I want to work on as well when we have a moment. But what we'll do is we'll sit down, and the phases we went through with ScalePath, for example, with Sam, was we saw the trend that was coming, right? Post-COVID, people really are much more comfortable in online communities. We saw that there's an open space where EO, Vistage, and these other things don't really care about companies below 3 or 4 or 5 million in revenue. But yet you show up in those types of places and they don't teach you fundamentals, like how do I hire a lawyer and all this kind of stuff. So we saw that kind of insight and hypothesized around it, and Sam basically went and did lean startup stuff. And he would go away for a week and go interview a bunch of people and then come back and see what they had to say. And then only after we validated the problem, then did we go do solution interviews with people. So we did real lean startup stuff there, but we did it in my effectuation style incubation, right, model, right? So then basically what Sam and I did is napkin model and said, hey, figure out, go model out this business. And it's super simple when you have a recurring revenue business like that. Model out how much cash you need, what we're going to spend on hiring staff, what we're going to spend on CAC, all that kind of stuff, come up with a rough number. And then he and I figured out how to orchestrate the whole thing in terms of how much he's going to get paid. He's taking a salary and all that kind of stuff. How much money I would put in, who would own what. Write that all up in an MOU. You have a model of what the first year is going to look like, and then you multiply that by an extra 50%. And you say, okay, good, we're going to have this much money. Let's go launch it and try it and see what happens.
And how quick did that one get revenue or profit?
We started interviewing people January-ish, and then we launched it, I think, in March, and then we were cash flow positive by May.
Yeah, that's incredible. And the amount of seeding, I think you've told me this in the past, but how much is going into, ballpark, I'm sure it's different, but is this 100,000 or is this?
It's 100 to 200,000.
Okay.
Yeah, for incubating something like that. So, it's one of the things, I've got a ton of stuff in my world that's pay me some days. I'm much more interested in pay me nowadays.
Yeah.
Cash flow positive.
I
Also,
like that.
CapEx light. I've learned hard lessons. Like the coffee business was just that way. It's like, oh man, CapEx sucks.
Yeah, let's dive into it. Like, what are the type of opportunities? So when I come on as an associate, I can really, tailor this for you. What are the type of opportunities that you want to get involved in?
We're gonna open a sock factory. No.
Let's go. I've got some ideas.
Yeah, so I have a whole checklist. What I've discovered is like I need to counteract my emotions by having a checklist that I can hold myself accountable to. Here's the truth of the checklist. I only know like 3 of the things on the checklist. I have to go revisit the checklist, every idea that gets past the first 3 things. But like I think there's this super interesting middle of companies and business opportunities that can achieve venture scale, but don't require venture capital, right? And it's like typically people are launching these like agency type businesses that can get to like 3 million a year in revenue. That's fine, whatever. But like to me, that just is another job. Like I don't need that. And also like raising a bunch of money from VCs, I'm not interested in that. But like there's this, it's not a messy middle. It's like a beautiful middle of like near and scale path that there's a clear way without a ton of capital reinvestment, we can get to 100 million in revenue. And like I want to focus entirely on specifically those ideas, and they have the same kind of characteristics, like giant TAM, huge tailwinds, like good cash conversion cycles, high gross margins, like all that stuff is there. Low CapEx, right? Like I don't want to be buying. My coffee business was great, but I was like after like, writing.
Yeah, you said it was like $2.5 million before you sold the first coffee, right?
Like to build a new coffee shack, and they're shacks, like
Yeah.
to build one of those, like if you're doing Dutch Brothers style beautiful one, you're putting a couple million in.
Yeah.
So we were doing for less than $1 million because we were scrappy, but like still like it's like, God,
Yeah,
this
it's
sucks.
a lot of money. Yeah.
It just sucked. So that's when people are like, I want to do a high CapEx business. I'm like, that sucks. Like I've got enough of those. I don't
The
need more.
only good one is septic pumping, and I'll die on that hill.
That's fine.
Okay,
I'm
but
cool.
so low capex. And this is because I don't know, so I'm hoping you can help me understand this. How can a Latin American staffing agency for like remote workers hit 100 million in revenue?
Yeah. So do you know the guy who owns the Baltimore Ravens?
No.
So yeah, he's a staffing magnate.
Okay, really?
Yeah. So what happens over time with staffing customers is eventually they get larger and they start acting like enterprise customers, and you start getting treated more like an enterprise SaaS vendor and less like a SMB type thing. So yeah, I agree with you. Like it's really hard to see how a staffing business doing VAs and stuff like that is going to get there. Like, but when you go the direction we're going, which is much bigger, mid-size, 50, 200 person, 1,000 person clients, like they come to us and they need 50 people in LATAM, right? And it's much more a B2B sale, enterprise style company.
Is that like staffing as a service almost?
Yeah, so we
like
do.
Wing VA is an example of that, right? Are you familiar? Okay.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, so it's like the staffing as a service model. So you go and you approach them and you say, hey, I need like a 5 of this specific role. Maybe it's like a bookkeeper, call taker, or whatever. And they basically just fill the role. And then if there's turnover in that role, the role is still filled.
Right. Yeah, okay. Same thing. So yeah, so staffing is typically it's a cost plus model. 60, 70% of our business is that, and then there's recruiting where you just get paid to place people in jobs. So
Okay, so you're placing somebody in there. There's a 20 or 30 or whatever percent markup on that
it
salary.
depends on the client, but it's like 20 to 40%.
Gotcha.
So
Okay, and you think?
well, and I'm not doing anything. I just show up to the
yeah.
board meetings.
All right, so but you think there's a path to 100 million in there?
Absolutely.
That's incredible. Like
Yeah, there's a ton of $100 million plus staffing companies.
That's amazing.
They grow quickly. They can also shrink quickly if you screw it up. But
Yeah. What are the growth levers in getting? Where are you at now?
we were at 7 million GMV. So gross, if you count the salaries. So yeah, that's up. That's a year-old business.
Yeah.
Staffing is great.
Yeah. What's the gross margin?
It tends to be 20 to 40%.
Okay. So yeah, 1 year in, you're at 7 million. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I would like to take credit for it, but like the other guys are really
yeah.
doing it. Hayden and Franco are awesome. They're 2 associates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But like they live and breathe, and we talked about the shower factor. They get up every morning and they think about that business.
Yeah.
I do not think about it as often.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're identifying them specifically, Like they're down there. They're in Latin America, right? One of them was in Brazil.
Franco's in Buenos Aires, so he was my first overseas associate, and then Hayden was in Tennessee or something. He moved to San Antonio, and now he lives in Florida, Buenos Aires, and New York. His life's pretty good.
Yeah. Do you think the boots on the ground, like inside where you're sourcing talent, is an important part of the success here?
I think, yeah, there's things we wouldn't have known about Latin America if Franco wasn't part of the team. And then a ton of the team is in Latin America.
Have you ever met them in person?
Franco?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to Buenos Aires end of the month.
All right,
So
cool.
I've been pre-gaming because I have to get able to digest steak. So I've been eating steak lately. So yay me.
Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating.
I quit steak 2 years ago because I had issues.
Yes. So walk me through the same, because I'm like, thank you for Hire with Near. That's fascinating. I'm super pumped for you. Can you walk me through the same thing, the scale path? Like, what's the path to 100 million here?
Yeah, so theoretically there's economies of scale with CEO peer networks. You can see where EO, Vistage, and folks like that have gotten that big tab, YPO, all those kind of global networks.
Do you know how large those ones are?
Most of them are owned by private equity, so not sure, but I mean, you can see how many people are in EO. It's tens of thousands, so you just multiply their just basic dues, which when I quit EO was 5,000 a year. So you can kind of do the math of how big those things can get. So, there's a hypothesis there that just like those networks and then the giant kind of long tail of all of these tiny businesses, there's something like there's 100-something thousand businesses with less than 30 employees in it in the United States. Like our TAM is enormous. So basically our bet there is that we can figure out a way to make that business really, really big over time. And there's some interesting problems for us to figure out there. Right now we're at 100 members and accepting new members if you're interested. It's $250 a month and tons of value and much cheaper than EO or Vistage. Yeah, I mean, that's the hypothesis. We'll figure out how to scale. It's the same hypothesis we had when we started Dura. It's like people would ask how we're going to organize things when we get to 15 companies. And we're like, well, we can figure that out. That's not an intractable problem.
Yeah, we'll get there and figure it out. That's fascinating. All right, so content creation, you're using it, one, to have fun, which is great. Two, it's presenting you with opportunities, presenting you with associates.
Yep.
And three, it's driving value for your businesses. Has it driven value? I can't imagine it's done much for Alamo, but maybe Dura. Have you been able to drive any lead flow for Dura?
Not really. Doesn't help much. I mean, we talk about it sometimes, but yeah, it doesn't really help.
Yeah. If you broadcasted the drugs thing, you could probably drive some value for Alamo.
I'm down with that. Yeah, we just got to figure out what kind of drugs to do.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, I loved this. I think that the last thing I want to touch on, and we'll keep it brief because you've talked about this elsewhere, so I wanted this to be like the things that you didn't talk about elsewhere. Just the last 10-year journey of exiting your corporate job, jumping into the family business, and now you're Micheal Girdley.
Yeah.
You're famous on one section of the internet.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you which one.
It's so weird. I still feel my kids. I still go home. My wife still tells me to unload the dishwasher. So
Yeah.
welcome home. Unload the dishwasher.
But you're like,
That's
babe,
weird.
I have 200,000 followers.
Do you know how
on
many
Twitter
Twitter followers?
Like, do you
I
have any idea?
I'm famous on the internet. So yeah, I mean, there's been a couple people that have done it here. Like the coolest part of all the work is like people come up and they're like, "Hey, thank you," or like some people say like, "You changed my life," like, or "You opened my mind to something else," and I'm like, "That's awesome." Like,
That was me tweeting.
yeah,
Yeah.
just sitting at home writing tweets on the toilet. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I do it. Everybody knows you do it too. So like,
Yeah.
just so you know,
Guilty.
it's not just me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to open it up to the audience to ask Mr. Girdley here any questions that we have.
How did we get connected with the Boston Omaha guys for Dura? Yeah, so they've been great. There is two guys that started, and one of them is Warren Buffett's grand nephew, and he is running a HoldCo out of Boston called Boston Omaha, and they are a friend of a friend that is really inspired by the Dura mission of buying these cash-flowing, very healthy, long-in-the-tooth software companies that we buy. And really believed in it. Loved the team. I charmed them when we went up for a fundraising trip, and they joined. I'm just kidding. It was Paul, the CEO. He's the He's the real heavy. But yeah, we got connected because Matt, who is one of the other board members for Dura, knew them very closely and had worked with them in the past. So yeah, they've been delightful. We had our first board meeting during 2 years ago, Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. We all flew up to Omaha. Like, it was super fun. Really enjoyed it. It's been good to talk to them and have them in there because they're bringing, we come with a lot of operator mindset in terms of what we're doing, and they bring very much the allocator mindset that we need to evolve to over time as we continue to grow the company. Yeah, what other infrastructure do I have? I'm a one-man plus chief of staff HoldCo. So outsourced accounting, keep it very simple. And so, yeah, and the chief of staff is only new in the past year and a half. Until then, I just did it all. I try to automate everything. I don't like people with personal assistants or executive assistants because they always waste my time, and I don't want to subject other people to that. And I always felt like if I needed somebody to manage my schedule for me, then I'm doing a bunch of shit I shouldn't be doing. So I don't have an EA and don't really ever plan to unless life changes a lot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just myself and a chief of staff. The chief of staff has been huge. Like, if a company is having like a critical problem, I can ask Robin to go in and deal with it. If there's projects that need to be done, hiring somebody, like, she just takes care of it. And it's great. Our one-on-ones, we like show up and she like bosses me around. And I'm like, you're doing great. Like, just tell me what to do. She's like, I love it. But that's the whole infrastructure. And anybody else, accountants or whatever, lawyers, they're all outsourced.
Is she in person with you?
She's in Toronto.
Okay.
So no, like, very far from San Antonio.
Yeah.
That's good, because I kind of, also by design and structure, having a remote chief of staff is good, because that means I'm not tempted to be like, hey, I need you to go buy the house and like open it up for this construction person or pick up my dry cleaning or something like that. So like, that way I can I can recruit a really good person for that role by having that role really elevated, because she knows she's only going to work on high value stuff, and being not in town will do that.
Did they come through the associate program as well, or was that specific to that hiring?
Robin, I hit her up to do that role when I decided to have it. She was formerly an associate. We hadn't found anything for her, and I knew she was awesome. And I was like, hey, come do a tour of duty as a chief of staff, and she'll roll off at some point in the next 6 to 12 months and either pursue something or go back to an associate role and work on something with me. So
At which point you'd go high. I mean, it sounds like COS was a game changer for you.
100%. Well, that's part of the deal. I was like, look, if you're going to quit chief of staff, like, your last job needs to be to find me a new chief of staff, because it sounds like a lot of work and I need your help. So,
has she been codifying Girdley for the next person?
she says that she has like a whole like folder full of stuff. It's not just the bad stuff, but the good stuff too.
Nice.
So, yeah. So you're talking about our co-working space, the Rainwater? Yeah.
Call it what it is.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, so you'll notice a pattern how I do stuff. It's small experiments and then go all in on them. So we're still in the small experiment phase for the Rainwater, which is the name of it. We named it after Richard Rainwater, who's one of the great deal makers in history. You should totally Google him. His Wikipedia is fascinating. But we named the space after him. We initially went out, my partner Mike and I, who have done business deals with in the past, to go buy a building during COVID, and then we discovered like everything's stupid expensive, and we couldn't get our head around anything that was that exciting. We did get close to buying a building, but we didn't end up putting a contract because they changed their mind. So we got introduced by a friend to a former law space, and with the idea of, hey, let's go office someplace really great that's not our house, and we'll recruit all of our friends and other ballers from San Antonio, and we'll have our own baller space for people that are doing shit. And then we can curate who we want to work with. And I had actually gotten to know Mike by being in a co-working space with him, and we both hated the aspect of the co-working space that they let anybody in. We're like, what if they just let the awesome people in? And so tactically, we then just went out and found a space. We looked at a bunch of different ones. We met with this one particular landlord who was managing the business and owned it and would be officing next door. They showed us the space. We negotiated a lease. We leased it for 2 years. As a test bed for us. And then we went out after signing the lease and recruited a bunch of people, basically by me like calling a bunch of people I knew, Mike doing the same. I found one person through Twitter. Some of them also were people that I knew that I talked about it on Twitter and contacted me because they saw it. And then we filled it up with other folks. And basically our model is to make the space like so awesome that the price doesn't really matter. And we charge a fair price, but we take all of the profits and the money left over and put it back into the space. So we like just remodeled it. Somebody said they wanted like this really expensive TV, like AV system. We have like all you can eat snacks and coffee. Somebody wanted a water filtration system. We bought it. And so that creates that space. And we have like 2 guys that have sold their companies and exited, one who sold it for more than $1 billion. He's in there. We have a guy that works for a big family office. There's me and Mike, 3 software entrepreneurs, and 1 guy who decided to become a business coach and exited his business. So all people that are like in the arena doing shit, like actual shit, but not scammy SPAC shit. Like we're all doing like real stuff and holding, you know. And the cool thing about it, like here's a great example, like just the osmosis of it. Like I've turned into a total AV nerd about my AV setup. Never had 1 lesson, just watching YouTube videos. Still have a way to go. But like the funny thing that's happened is everybody keeps walking past my office, and like as I keep walking past their offices, I'm like, that's a new piece of hardware, new camera. Like they're all upgrading their systems, and so now everybody looks like they have like full-on systems, but it's just by being in proximity with other people doing awesome stuff and curating who you're being around. And so we're trying to create that sort of environment where it's like you walk in and you're like, oh, these are badasses, and like I see what they're doing and I could do that too, and it makes everybody better by being together.
Are you at capacity?
Yeah, at capacity again. So in the first, we just renewed and extended the lease because we don't really want to move because we're lazy. But we've only had 1 month of vacancy for 1 of the crappiest offices since we started. So so far it's working really well.
And you're in there?
I'm in there 2 or 3 days a week. We've had stuff going on with my family where I've been working at home a lot. But you know, your typical person's in there 2 or 3 days a week easily.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Dude, this has
awesome.
been an amazing show. You guys have killed it. Like all the details, like.
Thank you.
Anyway, like, so in front of everybody, like, thank you. That everything from the name tags to like this space, which is like super cool, even though it looks like it's from The Shining. Like everything's been awesome. The food, the venue last night, even Cleveland.
Thank you.
12 out of 10. So yeah, you guys killed it.